I hate spending money on video games, not because I'm broke, but because when presented with the option to buy a $60 game or $60 worth of food,
I'ma eat it.
As the ultimate min-maxer, I'm gonna make sure I pay the least amount for the most amount of value possible. This very concept is why most of the games I've purchased on Steam are under $20. But you know, finding good games for cheap can sometimes be very hard. But my experience as a mobile gamer has really given me this ability to just discern trash from a genuinely good game. Whether it be during Steam sales or browsing the $10 and unders tab on Steam, I'm always looking for cheap games to sink countless hours into. Due to the games I played growing up, I tend to have a major bias towards 2D or pixelated games, which luckily for me end up being on the cheaper side of the spectrum. Sometimes I find a game so good and so cheap that I've gone beyond penny pinching. I think I might be
Cuphead and his pal Mugman, they like to roll the dice. By chance they came on Devil's Game, and gosh, they paid the price. Paid the price. And now they're fighting for their lives on a mission fraught with dread. And if they proceed but don't succeed, well, the devil will take their heads.
Hey guys, EnderHerve here, bringing you guys another episode of Pixel Pinching. Today we're going to be taking a break from Vampire Survivor-like games and talk about Cuphead. Now, if you're a fan of the channel, you probably saw this one coming, but honestly, it was only after beating the DLC that I was reminded of how cheap this game actually was. While this game is literally at the margin for pixel pinching, you're still paying 3.5 times less since games are $70 now than you would be paying for a AAA game. Plus, Cuphead goes on sale for 30% off, placing it at a crisp $14. Cuphead is an all-time classic run-and-gun action indie game, heavily focused on boss battles. And when I say classic, I mean that literally, as Cuphead is drawn in the style of an old cartoon with old-timey soundtracks to match. After losing a couple of games at the casino against a literal dice man and the devil, which definitely was a smart idea by Cuphead and Mugman, Cuphead and his brother Mugman are forced to bring the contract of runaway debtors back to the devil. These runaway debtors are the bosses of the game. There are also platforming side-scroller-esque run-and-gun levels where you pass through a series of challenges and try to make it to the end of the level. You can play as either Cuphead or Mugman, with their only difference being appearance and not abilities. Each character is armed with a finger gun, a dash, and the ability to parry pink objects. Throughout the game, you are able to unlock more weapon options, charms that give you passive abilities, and super arts, which are your ultimate moves. As you progress, your skills will be put to the test, as bosses become increasingly challenging until you are eventually able to beat King Dice and the devil himself. Each level has a ranking system from D to S, depending on how quick you beat the level, how much HP you end with, how many parries you pull off, how many supers you pull off for boss levels, and how many coins you collect for run and gun levels. Having finally beaten the game's DLC, I can confidently say that this is one of my favorite games of all time. And that's a big deal coming from someone who doesn't like to play favorites. This game has just the right amount of challenge where sure, some bosses can be incredibly hard, but never impossibly hard. I'm speaking strictly about normal mode bosses though. Who knows how hard the bosses get on expert mode. But now that I've gone through the trenches, maybe it is time for expert mode. I like to think of this game as the Dark Souls for people like me. Instead of having enemies as well as bosses to fight, it's just a boss rush. And instead of fighting realistic demigods and mythical creatures in 3 dimensions, you're fighting hand-drawn old cartoony villains in 2 dimensions. You can really tell how much love and care was put into this game. The game just looks and feels so alive. That's probably because all of the animations and art in this game is hand-drawn. Like every single frame was drawn by a person and put together to make like the movements and the animation. And the music was recorded live, so like with live instruments inside of a studio. And if you haven't seen the videos of them like actually recording and making the songs, I'd highly suggest it because it's like really cool to see them actually like play the instruments and just see how the song comes together. Like they got a composer in there, they got like I'm not a music person at all. Like I'm not a band person, so I don't know like the different types of instruments, but they got it all in there. Like they're just all in the studio, composes like, okay, this part go, these people go, this part go, these people go, and it just comes together into one big song. On top of that, no two bosses or run and gun levels are the same, forcing you to adapt and come up with new strategies for each boss. The different weapon and charm choices cater to different playstyles and can sometimes be necessary to beat a boss. Personally, I didn't want to use Smoke Bomb because everybody uses it, and I thought it would make dodging too easy, but that didn't stop me from beating the game using other charms. Did I make the game 10 times harder on myself? Yeah, probably, but it's not like it was impossible, you know? The bosses in this game are designed exceptionally well to provide a hard but not too frustrating challenge. Most of the time. I'm looking at you, Ice King. I'll never forget what you did to me.
Of course! Of course! Of course! But why not? Oh my, these popsicles!
Each attack, each movement, each phase, and even the background all come together to form some sort of puzzle for you to solve to be able to take on whatever boss you're fighting. I came into this with no real experience playing these kind of games, unless you want to count Kirby or Mario as Cuphead-like games. But I came out as a 1v9 seasoned Cuphead veteran. As the game ramps up in difficulty, you are forced to increase your skill level as well. On Inkwell I1, I was barely even trying to parry anything. By the time I got to the end of the game, I was fiending for any parry opportunities. Cause when you parry, you get super. And if you get super, you do more damage. And if you do more damage, the boss ends quicker. Also, I was able to beat the game on keyboard, which didn't feel that bad. However, I'll probably try to use a controller when I go back to try to get like a S grade on everything. The game recently, and recently in quotation marks because I think it was like 2 years ago, got a DLC with bosses that are as challenging as some of the hardest bosses in the main game. Some of these new bosses have crazy gimmicks and mechanics that will really make you rethink about the whole game of Cuphead. And also, this DLC has, I think, what is the hardest boss in the game ever. If you watch the series, you know. If you know, you know. If you know, you know, okay? For $8, you can get access to a new owl and a new playable character who is mechanically different from Mugman and Cuphead. My one and only complaint about this game is that the bosses where you have to fight them in the plane mode are not that fun to me. But that actually might just be a skill issue, so I might just be yapping, and I don't need to elaborate further on that. But just in my personal opinion, those bosses were just not as fun or not as engaging as like the normal ones. So yeah, if you're not afraid of a challenge and are into 2D platformers with boss fights and running guns, you should definitely pick up Cuphead. Even if you're not into these kind of games, I feel like this game is a really good way to test your gamer skills and to see if you're really like that. You'll probably be way better than I was at the game, but if you want to see how it went for me, there's a series link probably in the description, maybe in the comments, of like, you know, the whole Cuphead journey for me. You don't really feel like watching the whole series, you can watch the Cuphead in a nutshell video. I think that kind of sums it up pretty well in 14 minutes. And then if you want to watch like the DLC, there is no nutshell part 2, but you know, it's only 3 episodes for the DLC, so check those out if you want. But yeah, man, like the quality of this game just for $20 is just unreal to me. Like to have a live studio recording your music and having like everything be hand drawn and hand animated and just dropping that for $20 is just like, you know, ridiculous. But shout out to the developers, you know, really appreciate it. I know there's a Cuphead show, I haven't actually watched it yet. I haven't heard too much about it, but maybe I'll watch it eventually. I'm definitely gonna be playing more Cuphead, either on the side or do some series of like specific challenges on the channel. But yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe if you want. Don't make deals with the devil, and I'll catch you on the flip.